Most practice doesn't work, and you can feel it. You put in hours and stay average. There's a reason, and it has nothing to do with talent. By the end of this, you'll know the feedback loop that separates wasted repetition from actual skill growth. You'll understand why plateaus exist and what to do when they hit. Think about your last practice session for a moment. Did you measure anything? Did you notice what actually improved, or just play until you got tired? Most people practice on autopilot, repeating the same mistakes faster than they fix them. This is where practice fails, not in effort, but in method. Your brain needs three things to build skill-focused attention on a specific weakness: immediate feedback about whether you're fixing it, and systematic repetition of the correction. Without all three, you're just accumulating hours. Most people skip the feedback part entirely. They practice, assume they're improving, and wonder why progress stalls. This is predictable. This is preventable. The difference between someone who plays guitar for 10 years and stays mediocre versus someone who plays for 3 years and reaches mastery isn't talent. It's whether they built a feedback loop into every session. I'll show you that loop in a moment. But first, understand why normal practice feels productive but produces nothing. When you practice without measurement, your brain interprets repetition as safety, not growth. You're confirming you're still capable of what you already know. Comfortable repetition is the opposite of mastery. Mastery lives in discomfort, in the space where you can't quite execute what you're attempting. That's where adaptation happens. Most people avoid that space because it feels like failure. It's not. It's exactly where learning occurs. The moment your practice stops feeling hard is the moment your improvement stops. You won't feel this directly, but you'll notice progress slows, plateaus lengthen, sessions feel like repetition instead of development. This is autopilot practice. It's expensive because it costs you time without returning skill. Here's what deliberate practice actually means, and this is the part people misunderstand completely. It doesn't mean practicing harder or longer. It means practicing with a specific weakness as the target, feedback about whether you're fixing it, and the discipline to repeat until it's fixed. Then you find the next weakness and repeat. This is systematic. This isn't motivational. This is method. Take a pianist who can play a sonata fluently, but fumbles a specific passage during the climax. Normal practice: play the full sonata 10 times and hope it gets better. Deliberate practice: isolate that passage, play it at half speed with a metronome, focus on the exact finger transition, causing the error. Play it correctly 5 times in a row, gradually increase tempo, only after accuracy hits 95%, then reintegrate it into the full piece. Different method, different result. That passage no longer breaks, the pianist can feel the difference immediately. That's what feedback looks like. Most practice skips this entirely. This is where most people quit. The isolation phase feels boring. It feels like you're not really practicing. Your brain equates boredom with inefficiency. It's lying. The isolation phase is where actual correction happens. Speed doesn't matter until accuracy is locked in. This is counterintuitive, which is why most people skip it and stay average. Focus beats volume. Feedback beats repetition. Measurement beats guessing. That's the core framework. When you practice with focused attention on a specific error, your brain allocates resources to that neural pathway. It tags it as important. Repetition without that focused attention doesn't produce the same neural change. You're creating muscle memory without creating skill memory, the procedural knowledge that transfers to new contexts. This is why someone can practice scales for years but still fumble when playing a real song. The brain wasn't consolidating the skill, it was just repeating a pattern. One feels like practice, the other actually is practice. The difference is whether you're measuring and correcting between each rep. Most people practice quantity. Serious practitioners practice specificities. Let me make this concrete. A runner wants to improve their mile time from 7 minutes to 6:30. Normal practice runs miles repeatedly, doesn't track splits, doesn't measure, assumes repetition helps. Deliberate practice breaks mile into quarters, measures split time for each, identifies that quarter 3 is the bottleneck, too slow because of early pace mistakes, focuses week 1 on quarter 3 at target pace with a watch, providing feedback, nails quarter 3 consistency, reintegrates into full mile attempts once quarter 3 is solid, then measures again, results 6:30 mile achieved in 8 weeks, current speed 700 pace, redo, target 630 pace, redo, increase speed only after quarterly splits hit target, Results vary based on fitness baseline and recovery practices. The difference wasn't the runner getting stronger, it was the runner getting smarter about where to apply. Effort, loving. A guitarist stuck on speed. Current state can play an exercise cleanly at 100 BPM. Once 140, most guitarists play it over and over at 140 and hope it locks in. Deliberate practice guitarist isolates the three-finger pattern, that's the bottleneck. Plays it at 60 BPM with a metronome, focuses on zero tension in the hands, nails it 50 times correctly, increases to 70 BPM only after 95% accuracy, measures accuracy with video, watches the video, notices the third finger is still tense, makes micro adjustments, repeats, increases tempo in 5 BPM jumps, never advancing until accuracy is above 90%. This takes 4 weeks. The guitarist hits 140 cleanly and discovers they can go faster, current speed 100 BPM. Runu, 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 Current technique and practice frequency. The underlying principle is identical to the runner. Isolate weakness, measure correction, integrate. Most people skip measurement entirely, and that's the fatal flaw. If you're not measuring, you're not improving. You're just hoping you can feel yourself getting better. That's just novelty and increased fluency from repetition. Real improvement shows up in metrics, lap times, accuracy percentages, speed increases, precision measurements. Without metrics, you can tell the difference between meaningful progress and comfortable repetition. This is why progress stalls for most people. They're blind to whether they're actually improving. They assume they are because they've practiced. That's a bad assumption. Chess players studying openings instead of playing through realm variations theoretically. Play 10 positions from a specific opening. Record whether each position was solved correctly. Track solve time. How be your improvement over 2 weeks. Week 1 and 8/10 correct at 3 minutes average. Week 2 target 9/10 correct at 25 minutes average. Metrics show improvement. No metrics and they're just reading chess positions without knowing if mastery is increasing. Results vary based on study quality and review frequency. A public speaker wanting to improve audience engagement. Normal practice gives talks, hopes they land, doesn't measure anything. Deliberate practice records talks, watches with a rubric. Eye contact percentage, pause frequency, transition clarity, audience reaction moments, measures each metric every performance, adjusts one variable per session, re-records the next talk, remeasures after 10 talks with measured adjustments. An engagement is demonstrably different. The speaker can see it in the data and feel it in the room. That's proof. Results vary based on audience type and experience level. The mechanism is identical. Diagnose the weakness in the metric, isolate that variable, practice it deliberately, measure the change, repeat. Now here's where people get stuck. Plateaus. You'll practice deliberately for weeks or months. Progress is clear, faster, more accurate, more consistent, then it stops. Your metrics flatline. You're improving, but the needle won't budge. This is a plateau. It's normal. It's also where most people quit. They interpret the plateau as evidence that they've hit their ceiling, that more practice won't help, that they're just not built for this skill at this level. This is wrong. The plateau is your brain consolidating before the next leap. It's not a stop sign, it's a consolidation period, but only if you understand it. Most people don't, so they quit instead of pushing through. Your nervous system has internalized the current skill level. It's becoming automatic. This is good, but it also means your body has adapted to the current stimulus. It needs a new stimulus to grow further. If you keep doing exactly what you were doing, the plateau persists. If you change one variable, add difficulty, change the constraint, add a new demand, the plateau breaks and growth resumes. This is predictable. I've seen it in every domain. Look at a tennis player hitting a plateau on their backhand serve. For 2 months, they've improved serve speed, increased, consistency improved, accuracy improved. Then both metrics flatline at 85 mph, 85% into serve accuracy plateau. Most players would practice more of the same serve. This does nothing. Deliberate approach, identify what changed. Nothing. That's the problem. Introduce a new constraint, serve from 2 feet further back. Same accuracy target. Nervous system recalibrates, skill adapts to new difficulty, returns to serve from normal baseline. Now feel easier, plateau breaks, results vary based on starting skill and physical training. The mechanism is consistent. Plateaus break when you change the variable, not when you repeat it. If you're stuck, don't do more of the same. Change one variable, add difficulty, change the angle, change the tempo, change the constraint. Something needs to shift. Most people don't understand this, so they quit at plateaus. They'll never reach mastery because they interpret adaptation as failure instead of recognizing it as the growth process. This is brutal, but avoidable once you know the pattern. Here's another common mistake: specificity. Everyone thinks they understand this, and almost no one does. Specificity means you practice the thing you want to improve, not the foundation that supposedly supports it. A jazz pianist wanting to improvise better doesn't solve this by practicing scales for 2 hours. They improvise for 2 hours while recording themselves, measuring coherence, listening for areas where they lose direction, and deliberately practicing. Those moments of incoherence, that's specific. Scales are foundational, but they're not the practice target. Most musicians get this wrong. They build foundations forever and call it practice. It's not, it's procrastination disguised as training. Specificity says, identify the exact performance you need, practice that exact performance, measure that exact performance. Everything else is secondary. A speaker who wants to improve extemporaneous speaking doesn't practice speeches they've prepared. They spend time speaking on unfamiliar topics with no preparation, measuring whether their coherence holds. That's specific. A coder who wants to improve algorithm design doesn't watch algorithm videos. They solve algorithm problems, measure, solve time, and solution quality. Review their wrong solutions. Practice the weak pattern. That's specific. A golfer who wants to improve putting doesn't spend range time. They practice puts from specific distances, track makes and misses, focus on the distances where they're below 75% accuracy. That's specific. The pattern is identical. Don't practice foundations. Practice the performance skills. Don't transfer as much as people think. A cellist who practices vibrato for hours doesn't automatically transfer that vibrato skill to bow speed control. Each is a separate skill. This is why focused practice on the exact skill you need is non-negotiable. You can't practice generalized musicianship or athleticism or communication and expect specific skill transfer. You need to practice the specific skill. This frustrates people because it feels narrow. It is narrow. That's why it works. Broad practice produces broad mediocrity. Narrow practice produces specific mastery. Now let me show you the actual implementation framework. Every practice session needs 3 elements: a specific target weakness, measurement of that weakness, and systematic repetition of the correction. Without all 3, you're not practicing deliberately. You're just practicing here's the structure. Diagnose the weakness. Watch yourself, record yourself. Ask for feedback. Identify the exact breakdown. Isolate the weakness. Remove everything except that one element. Drill the isolation. Repeat the correction at manageable difficulty until accuracy is above 90%. Then increase difficulty incrementally. Reintegrate. Put the corrected element back into the full performance. Measure. Track whether the full performance has changed. If yes, you're done with this weakness. Find the next one. If no, return to step 1. This structure is mechanical, which is why it works. You don't need motivation or inspiration. You need clarity and measurement. The clarity comes from diagnosis. The measurement comes from tracking. Structure without inspiration is sustainable. Inspiration without structure is just hope. Let me show what implementation looks like across 3 practitioners. First, a jazz pianist. Week 1, records themselves improvising, watches with a checklist. Does melody flow logically? Is rhythm consistent? Do chord choices make sense? Identifies that chord choices are weak. They reach for complicated chords that don't fit. Weakness diagnosed. Week 2, takes 10 minutes daily and plays simple 2-chord progressions, improvises melodies over them, records, listens critically, measures whether melodic choices fit the 2-chord space, repeats until intuitive. Week 3, adds 3 chords, same process. Week 4, records full improvisation again, notices chord choices have dramatically improved. Metric confirms fewer weak progressions per session. Results vary based on musical background and ear training. Second, A sales professional records themselves in 3 client calls, existing calls, analyzed later, watches recordings with a rubric. Did they ask questions or make statements? Did they listen for 60 seconds before responding? Did they confirm understanding? Did they close with a clear next step? Notices they ask almost 0 questions and talk too much, pitching instead of listening. Weakness diagnosed week 1. Practices with a role-playing partner, focuses on asking 3 targeted questions per call before pitching, records role plays, counts questions, measures whether client responds with more engagement, yes or no, repeats until natural. Week 2, applies to real calls, records them, measures same metrics. After 2 weeks, client engagement is noticeably higher. Metrics show average questions per call, increased from 0.5 to 2.7. Results vary based on customer type and industry. Third, an endurance runner currently runs 5K in 22 minutes, wants 20 minutes, breaks this into quarter-mile segments, measures split time for each, discovers that quarter miles 2 and 3 are significantly slower, too fast pace early, crashes late, weakness diagnosed week 1. Runs 5K at controlled pacing, measures splits regularly, focuses on quarter-mile 2 consistency. Week 2, adds targeted strength work for the metabolic system. Week 3, runs a full 5K, measures splits, splits improved for quarters 2 and 3, time drops to 21:15, measurement proves progression, results vary based on fitness baseline and recovery practices. The framework is identical: diagnose, isolate, measure, reintegrate, repeat. The speed of improvement depends on 3 factors: how bad the weakness is, how precisely you isolate it, how consistently you practice. Most improvements happen in 8 to 16 weeks.